Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing great myself because I'm finally here to cover the whole Hi-Fi Rush was a flop narrative. And what better way to do that than with our good pal Harman Smith? Because like with a lot of PlayStation fanboys, as soon as Jeff Grubb said he heard from somebody that Hi-Fi Rush didn't do very well, Harman instantly jumped on the hate train, saying that, oh well, this guy said he heard that the game didn't do what it needed to do, therefore it was a massive failure. Despite Microsoft coming out multiple times saying the game was a huge hit, and on top of that, the week it came out, it was in the top sellers on Steam, and on top of that, the game was so successful that Tango is officially expanding their studio. Definitely sounds like a complete flop to me. What about you guys? But anyway, enough sarcasm. I haven't even seen this video yet, so I can only imagine what we're about to witness. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this.
Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole Lore for the upcoming John the Dragon. So game journalists have revealed information that I was talking about a week after launch of Hi-Fi Rush, in that the fact is the game bombed. There is no denying it. There is no disputing this. This was always like on the table. This was always very clearly evident. Like there were numbers to suggest this. People like ignored me. They tried saying that everyone was playing the game on Game Pass. You know, people were saying this was a huge success. It was a huge hit. It shit all over Forspoken, or Flopspoken as they called it. This was one of the games of the year.
I mean, yeah, I agree. You know what? I'll drink to that. And don't worry, I mean Gatorade. But yeah, I still think even now that Hi-Fi Rush is a game of the year contender. I thought Jedi Survivor was going to be one, but I think we all know what happened with that. But how exactly did the game bomb? Microsoft confirmed that it passed 2 million players. Now, obviously, they say players instead of purchases because a lot of the people who played this game, including myself, got it through Game Pass instead. But it's definitely deniable that it was a failure because, like I said earlier, it was in the top sellers on Steam the week it came out, and it was competing against Forspoken that same week, and that game never even showed up there. But also, what are the numbers to suggest that it failed? If you don't get number one in the top sellers on Steam, is that not a good enough number? And also, one more observation, why does Harman's video quality and mic quality get worse every single video? Like, we thought it was bad before, but I swear to God, it's like this man is actually recording on a McDonald's Sprite. Actually, no, what he did is he went back to the 1800s, he got one of those super old cameras, and then he just kept taking pictures of himself and then pasted them together in iMovie. Or maybe he's recording on his 3DS or something. Well, whatever it is you're recording on, even phones from like 10 years ago had better recording quality than this. Okay, maybe not 10 years ago, but like 7 years ago. Whatever, point is upgrade your stuff, bro.
Even though it came out in January before we got games like Fire Emblem Engage, games like Octopath Traveler 2, Cereza and the Lost Demon, Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is in all likelihood going to be the real game of the year. Like, there was this very big push, coordinated push, to present this idea that Hi-Fi Rush was this, like, great game from Tengu Gameworks and was a huge hit in the making. It was a huge cult classic and it was going to just do gangbusters. And,
did he just call Tango 10U? Harman, look, I know you have a history of pronouncing things really poorly, but how do you even mess that up? But yeah, guys, he's absolutely right. It was just one big coordinated push. The only reason Hi-Fi Rush was successful was because of a coordinated push from Xbox fans. Everybody collectively sat down in a room together and said, you know what, guys, Xbox just dropped a new game randomly. Let's all praise it. It's definitely not because the game is actually good or anything, because, you know, it's not exclusive to the Switch. Kinda like with Resident Evil, huh? But Harman, I know you're watching this video. I'd like you to answer me this question. What would your reaction to Hi-Fi Rush have been if it was exclusive to the Switch? Be completely honest with me. Let's see if you can keep that same energy.
I immediately wrote this off for what it was. You know, it was a shill campaign, right? Just like that campaign earlier this year where people tried pretending The Last of Us Part 2 was good, just like the one last year with Cyberpunk Edge Runners and like the patched, fixed Cyberpunk 2077. It's a good game now. Like that whole shebang. You know, like the typical pattern we see every time that like the establishment wants to push a specific product onto us is that they just get a bunch of people, you know, YouTubers, influencers, bots, to try and spam message boards and try to like spend a couple of weeks to inorganically talk about a product that nobody cares about. And in this case, it was Hi-Fi Rush.
Okay, that's it. I'm officially photoshopping a tinfoil hat onto this man's head in the thumbnail. He unironically thinks the system is getting a bunch of people and bots together to make the games look successful. You cannot write this in a script because the plot would be too stupid. Also, he said earlier this year they pretended The Last of Us Part 2 was good. I'm pretty sure he meant The Last of Us TV show. Which, hey, I'm not a Last of Us fan. I haven't watched the show, but I heard it was amazing. Pretty sure that wasn't people pretending either. And I'm pretty sure people weren't pretending that Cyberpunk Edgerunners was good either. Harman, hear me out. People just have different opinions than you, and they're not pretending that something is good. Maybe it just is, but you'll never admit that.
Right? A mediocre beat 'em up from the creators of actually good games. Games like God Hand, Vanquish. People who have a background in making really good action games. So the fact is, if you were like familiar with this team, what Tango Softworks, I don't even GameWorks, if you knew what they've been putting out for the past 10 years, you would not have been in any way invested in this game or what they were doing, right? You would have known that it's been that they've always put out mediocrity. They've always been making mistakes. They've always been like doing all this stuff. They've always like just fallen far short of their potential, especially after like the initial success of Platinum Games or what they were doing. Like,
of course, Tango has never been good, and Platinum has always been great. Why am I not surprised that he brought up a company that makes Switch exclusives? Okay, look, Ghostwire Tokyo may not be very good, but aren't both of the Evil Within games really good? They have super high ratings on Steam, and that's basically all I know about them. But what am I saying? Of course they weren't good. They weren't exclusive to the Switch, my mistake. Also, I love the logic of, oh, if a company puts out a game, then all their future games can't get any player investment whatsoever. Like, no, dude, that's not how this works. If a company puts out some bad games, but then a good game, people will praise and support the good game. If everybody stopped supporting developers after a single bad game, then there would basically be no developers left. Hell, EA wouldn't be around to release the god-awful ports of Jedi Survivor.
The Evil Within was a disaster. Everything the company has done has been bad, in essence. And nobody wants to admit it because it's not a Nintendo affiliated brand, and this is like, a Microsoft owned studio now. And people were really trying to push this narrative that like this was eventually going to be a major studio for Xbox. And look what happened.
You mean kind of like how you don't want to admit it's a good game because it's not a Nintendo game? Kinda hypocritical. And while I don't know if Tango will ever be a major studio for Xbox, they definitely got a big step up after Hi-Fi. Again, they're expanding their studio. The biggest studios for Bethesda will always be Bethesda Game Studios and id Software. And Arcane might take a bit of a tumble if Redfall isn't very good. But even if Tango never becomes one of the big Xbox studios, they'll still always be remembered for Hi-Fi Rush. And more importantly, getting Microsoft out of a year-long slump with nothing.
They put out a shill campaign. They made this like budget action game. They tried like presenting this narrative like they did with Sunset Overdrive, that like, oh man, look how wacky and surreal this is, and nobody really cared. There was an initial wave of praise and attention, but now it's completely fallen by the wayside, and all we have are the cold hard facts. That the game did not do very well. Xbox Game Pass does not save games like this. People need to stop pretending that like normal people are like scrolling through Xbox Game Pass like playing everything that comes out, because that does not happen. Okay? It just doesn't.
Well, luckily Game Pass didn't need to save this game. Again, top sellers on Steam is pretty damn good, especially for a game with no build-up and no marketing whatsoever, and it's also a new IP. And also, I don't think anybody's pretending that people are just scrolling through Game Pass playing everything that comes out. I mean, for me, if I'm looking for something new, I'll check out the new releases and stuff, and if nothing's interesting, then I'll just pick something that I already have. I don't think anybody's pretending that people are just sitting there scrolling through all of Game Pass. But then again, you love to make stuff up and then believe it, so what am I expecting?
Just getting through like the Yakuza games alone, like you can look at Yakuza trophies, trophies on Xbox, right? And you can see just how many people like play Yakuza and then just drop it immediately when they realize it's not a AAA game, right? You can see, I'm sure you can see that with Hi-Fi Rush and essentially every other game on Game Pass. Like, if people tried Hi-Fi Rush, they played it for a couple of seconds and then just dropped it. it's not typical for Xbox Game Pass fans to stick with any of these games for any length of time.
Yeah, and that's because they didn't actually pay full price for the game. They're just paying a $10 or $15 monthly subscription fee, and then there's no risk of them downloading and trying a game. If they like it and stick with it, then cool, but if they don't like it and they don't want to stick with it, then they can just drop it and they haven't wasted any money. Also, first of all, Yakuza is a AAA game. They spend tens of millions of dollars on making it. Second of all, why would people drop a game because it's not AAA? You have to be a special type of petty to do that. Oh, I'm really enjoying this game. It's a lot of fun. I've had a great time with it, but oh, it didn't have a super large budget, or it didn't have a super big team working on it. Ugh, disgusting. Get away from me. Like, what kind of logic even is this? I have never suggested this to anyone, at least I don't think I have, but Harman, you might want to script your videos. Maybe then we can edit out a lot of the stupidity. Then again, I would have less content to work with, so you know what, I take that back.
And as a result of that, like, by what metric can Hi-Fi Rush be considered a success? If people aren't playing it, if they're not talking about it, if it's not something that's actually pulling people in and getting people excited about the future of this company and the studio and maybe the future of the IP, then how exactly do you measure success? You know, like, how exactly, you can't even say you got the money from consumers because it's locked behind a subscription service. So nobody's playing the game, nobody's enjoying it, nobody gets any real value out of it.
That's right, guys. The 2 million people who played Hi-Fi Rush didn't actually play it, and they sure as hell didn't enjoy it. Man, reality sure is harsh. I really thought I actually enjoyed my time with it, but I guess I didn't. Oh well, you win some, you lose some. But I think after this game, people are definitely going to be more invested in Tango and their future games, as well as if they decide to make a sequel or DLC for Hi-Fi. Also, no, Hi-Fi Rush is not locked behind a subscription service. You can buy it on Steam, or you can buy it through the Xbox app on PC, or you can just buy it regularly on Xbox. This game is not locked behind Game Pass. You can just pay for it. Although I will say it is a good question, like, how do you measure success? Especially for a game like this. Was it, oh, it got people talking about Xbox? Is the number of downloads from Game Pass and the number of sales successful? Did new people subscribe to Game Pass to play this game? We're not exactly sure how Microsoft defines success for this game. All we know is they were very pleased with the results.
Like, I can see why, like, Shinji Mikami left the company after this. I can see what he's done and why he's, like, you know, gone back to, like, shilling for Resident Evil 4 and Capcom and stuff like that. Like, I would be mad too. You know, like, looking at this, like, seeing this push, but, like, to try and push a product that was niche, that had a small audience, as, like, this big mainstream thing, it just doesn't really work out very well. You know, it just makes you look like you're trying too hard, and that, like, you don't have a real leg to stand on, because, like, oh, look at this game, isn't it unique and different? Why aren't you making more games like it? If it's so successful and so popular, why is this not, like, standard for Xbox?
I mean, you could apply this logic to any popular good game ever. Why was Breath of the Wild style not standard for Nintendo? Obviously, it worked extremely well. There's something called variety. Yes, you do have cases like PlayStation where they find a formula that works and tend to stick pretty close to it, but they still do branch out. Plus, don't you think if every new Xbox game was exactly like Hi-Fi Rush, that might get a little bit boring? Like, that's one of the big criticisms of Sony exclusives, is while they're very high quality and very well made, the formula starts to get really similar after a while. Then again, maybe Microsoft should try that because they can't seem to get a damn thing right this year. Well, except for Hi-Fi Rush, that is. But also, you do realize that it takes more than like 4 months to make a game, right? It's not like they can constantly pump out sequels to Hi-Fi Rush or more games in the same style. Game development takes a lot of time. Again, why isn't Breath of the Wild just standard for Nintendo now? It's because games take time to develop, and not every game has to follow the same formula that worked for one game. You know, like, and the answer is just, it's not all that popular. Like, everything Xbox does is doomed to failure, right? You know, that extends just past Hi-Fi Rush. Like, all of my issues with this don't really, Hi-Fi Rush itself doesn't have anything to do with it, right? Like, I think this was an attempt at, like, trying to sell people on Game Pass, right? Like, look at this game that came out of nowhere, released on Game Pass, and ooh, everyone's talking about it for a couple of weeks. Download Game Pass and you can get it right now for free. It didn't work. You know, it fell flat on its face. So, Well, we don't know if it actually worked in terms of getting people to get Game Pass or not, but what we do know is the game was successful. Again, top seller on Steam, they're expanding Tango, and the only quote-unquote proof of the game not doing well is Jeff Grubb saying, oh, well, I heard from this one guy that this might have happened, and all the fanboys took that and ran with it. Now that I think about it, it's actually kind of ironic that the PlayStation fanboys took that leak and ran with it, considering they were the ones denying The Last of Us Part 2 leaks, and saying you have to wait for the game first, or in this case, you have to wait for Microsoft to make an official statement. But what can you do? Fanboys being hypocrites, who would have seen that one coming?
I'm curious if anyone else has noticed this or has brought it up at all. I think very few people like acknowledge that Hi-Fi Rush was a bomb right from the get-go like I did. I think most people were like adamantly like defending the game right until just recently. Now that it's time to like shill for like the PlayStation titles, like we're seeing people like turn their backs on Hi-Fi Rush and trying to talk up like Resident Evil 4 remake, and that'll be for eventually like push to the side in order to promote something else. It never ends with these people, right? They're not actually interested in talking about cool, new, interesting games. They just want to sell you on products. And that is why you cannot trust game journalists or YouTubers.
Wait a minute, I could have sworn that in the beginning of this video you were saying that game journalists exposed Hi-Fi Rush for not doing well, but now you can't trust them all of a sudden? Man, what a way to end the video. I really need to do this more often where I don't watch videos before recording, because I genuinely was not expecting that. It helps get a more genuine reaction out of me, I guess. But yeah, anyway guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Basically what we learned today is Hi-Fi Rush was a complete flop because somebody said that he heard about it, and game journalists reported on it, even though Harman at the very end said that you can't trust game journalists. Another banger from Harman Smith, everybody. But yeah, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you all next time.